Florida, a land of sunlit shores, storm-tossed history, and secrets buried deep beneath the sand and sea. For centuries, fortune seekers, pirates, and adventurers have come here chasing gold, glory, and sometimes disaster. Scattered along its coast lie the skeletons of doomed Spanish galleons. In its dark swamps and inland rivers, whispers persist of outlaw loot and hidden caches never claimed. Tonight, we'll dive into some of the Sunshine State's greatest mysteries, tales of lost treasure still calling out to those bold enough to search. From pirate plunder to legendary shipwrecks, these are the lost treasures of Florida.
Story number 1. Plantation Treasure. James Edward Flowers, a brave soul, met his untimely demise amidst the chaos of the Civil War. It was during the fateful Battle of Fort Pillow, Tennessee, on that fateful day of April 12, 1864, when he was just 21 years old. Alas, he departed this world carrying with him a secret that concealed the whereabouts of a hidden trove of gold and silver, worth an estimated $3,200. In life, Flowers resided alongside his mother on the Flowers plantation, nestled on what is now known as Vadane Road. This serene abode, situated 3 miles from Kilmichael, Mississippi, in the heart of Montgomery County, bore witness to a strained relationship between mother and son. Their bond deteriorated swiftly after the passing of Flowers' father. As fate would have it, the young man inherited a portion of the plantation's wealth, much to his mother's chagrin. From that moment on, their personal ties withered away. With the outbreak of the war, Flowers, driven by loyalty and duty, answered the call and joined the Confederate Army. However, before embarking on his perilous journey, he made a decision that would forever shroud his fortune in mystery. Flowers clandestinely buried the majority of his funds somewhere within the bounds of the plantation, keeping the knowledge of its precise location to himself. Only his aunt, Mrs. Bessie Tate, bore witness to his secret, unaware of the burial site. His mother, however, had suspicions. On one fateful night, she caught sight of young Flowers clutching a small iron pot filled to the brim with coins, poised to venture into the darkness. Sensing her son's intent, she confronted him, but in a fit of rage, he commanded her to remain indoors until his return. The intensity of the moment lingered in the air as the weight of their fractured relationship bore down upon them. Years later, fate led me to the remnants of this storied plantation during a brief stop on my journey to Florida. Today, the land is under the ownership of Mr. and Mrs. Jimmy Love, custodians of its rich past. While time has left its mark on the estate, with renovations breathing new life into its walls, echoes of the Flowers' existence still resonate within its halls. Curiosity piqued, I approached Mr. Love, who graciously extended an invitation to seek out the buried treasure. Alas, due to the constraints of time, I was compelled to decline his cordial offer. The endeavor demanded more than a cursory glance, as the expanse of the plantation held secrets that could not be unearthed in haste. I pledged to return when circumstances would allow me to pay the search its due diligence. Regrettably, that day has yet to arrive. Undoubtedly, the pursuit of this hidden wealth may span mere minutes or extend into weeks on end. However, the fruits of such an endeavor would undoubtedly be worth the toil for anyone willing to embark on the quest and reclaim the long-lost gold that lies beneath the soil, waiting to be discovered. Story number 2. Rare cache in a Florida swamp. Florida in the 1830s was a battlefield where the U.S. Army clashed fiercely with the Seminole Indians. It was an unlikely place to encounter a young inventor from Paterson, New Jersey, promoting his wares. But there he stood, Samuel Colt, not peddling beach essentials, but selling something far more potent: guns. Sam Colt was confident that his 8-shot revolving cylinder carbines would captivate those armed with single-shot rifles. However, his success was limited. While he managed to sell a few handguns to officers, his biggest order came from General Thomas S. Jessup, who purchased 50 carbines. Unfortunately, more than half of these firearms may still be concealed in a Florida swamp, waiting for a fortunate treasure hunter armed with a trusty metal detector. According to a letter from Colonel Harney of the 2nd U.S. Dragoons, dated November 8, 1850, General Jessup ordered the purchase of 50, and they were placed in my hands. They were the first ever used or manufactured. 30 of them were lost at Caloosahatchee. The exact circumstances of their loss vary, but one enduring tale suggests that during an Indian attack, the canoes carrying the carbines capsized, submerging the arms still enclosed in oak, zinc-lined, grease-filled containers. Should this account prove true, these firearms would likely be in impeccable condition even today. Therefore, if one happens to find themselves near Caloosahatchee, Florida, and their metal detector emits a promising signal, they should remain vigilant. The early Colt carbines, if discovered, would undoubtedly command a substantial fortune in today's collector market. Story number 3. Treasure in North Carolina. In the quaint village of Kittrell, nestled within Vance County, lies a secret waiting to be unraveled. Legends speak of Captain Pop, a notorious pirate whose hidden cache of gold coins remains undiscovered unless, of course, it has already fallen into the hands of a fortunate soul. Whispers of this treasure have spread far and wide, capturing the imaginations of many who dream of unearthing its glittering wealth. Captain Pop, once a fearsome buccaneer, grew tired of the treacherous seas and sought solace on land. With a small fortune to his name, he yearned for a purpose beyond his swashbuckling days. It was in the isolated hamlet of Kittrell that he found his haven, purchasing an ancient tavern and inn with a portion of his ill-gotten gains. This establishment, known as the Pop Castle Inn, held a fascinating history of its own. It had been erected by a European nobleman who sought refuge in the New World, weaving tales of intrigue and mystery into its very foundations. Under Captain Pop's astute guidance, the inn flourished, its coffers brimming with the spoils of both honest hospitality and the addition of gaming tables. Yet, behind the facade of revelry and mirth, the wily old pirate carefully hoarded his precious coins. Stories abound of the hidden nooks and crannies within the inn's walls, where Captain Pop secreted away his treasures. Alas, fate had other plans, and the pirate's demise left his riches untouched, forever concealed from prying eyes. Today, the Pop Castle Inn stands as a mere memory, a relic frozen in time. To reach its hallowed grounds, one must traverse the winding Lynbank Road, embarking on a journey that spans 2 miles until Ruin Creek is reached. The year 1860 marked the end of the inn's glory, its doors closing and its grandeur fading into the mists of history. Yet the allure of Captain Pop's hidden fortune persists, igniting the hearts of treasure seekers far and wide. Whether in its entirety or fragmented, the caches of this legendary pirate undoubtedly lie in wait, eager to be discovered by the fortunate few who dare to unravel the secrets of Kittrell's past.
Once upon a time, on the tiny Ross Island, nestled in Upper Tampa Bay near St. Petersburg, Florida, a long-lost secret lay hidden since the late 1820s. Measuring a mere mile long from north to south and half a mile wide, this unassuming isle was once home to a notorious pirate colony, a haven for outlaws who plundered merchant ships in the Tampa Bay area. It was Captain Henry Ross, the ruler of this rogue settlement, who concealed a chest brimming with gold on the island in 1821. More treasures were added over time, yet none have ever been unearthed to the best of anyone's knowledge. Ross had made his mark before the War of 1812, navigating the seas as one of the ship captains operating out of Barataria under the infamous pirate leader Jean Lafitte. Lafitte earned his place in history when he allied his band of buccaneers with General Andrew Jackson to triumph over the British forces in the Battle of New Orleans. In the aftermath of the war, these sea rovers were granted a full pardon by President James Madison, on the condition that they abandon their pirating ways and live as law-abiding citizens. Eager to shed their infamous past, they agreed, but soon found themselves unemployed. With tales of their adventures running dry, many quietly returned to their old ways as gentlemen of the coast, and Henry Ross was among them. During his days at sea under the command of the notorious Lafitte, Captain Henry Ross set his sights on a small island in Tampa Bay that would make the perfect hideout for a band of pirates. This island, later named Ross Island, had everything a pirate could desire: a natural lagoon to conceal their ship and a channel that could easily accommodate a shallow draft schooner. With a group of former pirates eager for adventure and riches, Ross acquired a swift three-masted schooner and sailed around 1817 to 18 to establish their colony on the secluded island. Ross was a cunning leader. He promised his men that once the necessary construction was complete, they could go back to New Orleans to bring their loved ones to the island, believing that family life would deter trouble among his rough crew. This strategy proved advantageous for him. The men built a dozen shacks from old ship's timbers, dug a well, and constructed docking facilities for the ship in the lagoon. To protect against potential attacks, they erected a sturdy fort with 3 brass ship's cannons and 2 warehouses for storing plunder. With the colony in shipshape, the men were permitted to return to New Orleans to reunite with their families. In the bustling world of illicit enterprise, Ross expanded his illicit pursuits beyond mere piracy. Smuggling and the despicable trade of human lives also commanded a significant portion of his focus. Naturally, the port of New Orleans served as the prime location for offloading contraband and fencing stolen treasures. Following each nefarious transaction, the seasoned pirate would retreat to his clandestine island stronghold, where he would bury his ill-gotten gains. Upon intercepting a vessel transporting unfortunate souls, Ross would transport them to Whedon's Island, situated northwest of his stronghold. Here, the wretched captives were confined in a sizable enclosure until he had amassed a sufficient number for market. Although the United States Congress had prohibited the importation of slaves in 1808, Ross possessed intimate knowledge of various bayous along the Mexican Gulf Coast, where unscrupulous buyers eagerly paid handsome sums for black ivory without raising any inconvenient queries. One of the pirates' most prized conquests was a Spanish ship en route from Mexico to Cuba. Following a brief yet ferocious skirmish, the buccaneers boarded the vessel and overpowered its unfortunate crew. The ship boasted a valuable cargo, including a chest of gold and a substantial quantity of silver bars from the Mexican mines. Rather than scuttling or incinerating the captured ship, Ross elected to sail her back to his colony. However, during the return voyage, the first mate voiced concerns about the larger vessel posing a problem in the small lagoon. After deliberation, Ross concurred, and the ship was navigated into Riviera Bay and deliberately sunk in the shallows. While retaining the chest of gold, Ross opted to leave the silver aboard the Spanish vessel, confident in his ability to retrieve it as needed. Prior to sinking the ship, the pirates dismantled its masts to conceal any conspicuous landmarks above the waterline. To this day, there exists no record of the recovery of the silver hoard from the now silt-covered wreck. Around this time, the pirates constructed a crow's nest atop a lofty pine tree, accessible via a rope ladder. Throughout daylight hours, a lookout perched there with a formidable spyglass. Upon sighting a promising merchant ship in Tampa Bay, he would sound a horn crafted from a sizable conch shell. This signal prompted the buccaneers to prepare their vessel and give chase to their quarry. In the adventurous tales of the daring pirate, Henry Ross, it was the norm for him to approach his intended victim, then hurl grappling hooks over the gunwales to seize his prey. After seizing available plunder, Ross would usually allow his victim to continue on its way if no resistance was offered by the crew. However, if met with defiance, he would set the helpless ship ablaze after looting it. This life of plunder and ease continued for months until numerous complaints reached the Navy Department in Washington. In response, the anti-piracy squadron of the U.S. Navy stationed at Key West was ordered to take action against these sea marauders. A sloop of war, some say it was the Hornet, others, the Spark, began to patrol Tampa Bay. Unaware of the U.S. Navy's pursuit, Ross continued his operations until the naval sloop surprised the pirates while in the act of looting a merchant ship outside Egmont Channel. A warning ball was fired across the pirate's bow, prompting Ross to order the grappling lines to be cut and set sail for his island stronghold. Despite successfully making his getaway to the safety of the lagoon on his island, the naval sloop closely followed. Although the warship couldn't risk coming too close due to treacherous shoals, it was equipped with new, long-range, rifled guns. Approaching the island as closely as safety permitted, the warship sank the pirate craft with several direct hits, unbeknownst to Ross. The pirates quaked in terror as they beheld their ship shattered into splinters, especially upon sighting a landing party of sailors and Marines approaching in longboats. Gathering only a handful of their possessions, the pirates and their families fled into the mangroves. The assailants proceeded to lay waste to the village, igniting the shacks, warehouses, and fort. In the meantime, they managed to capture 7 unfortunate pirates, who were subsequently hanged from the limbs of nearby trees. The commander of the naval sloop later recounted that they conducted a brief search for treasure, but due to time constraints, none was found. The fate of Captain Ross remains a mystery, but it is widely believed that the majority of his treasure was never recovered following the calamitous events of the 1820s. Various individuals have inhabited Ross Island intermittently over the years, including fishermen, smugglers, and rum runners. More recently, the squatters have been removed. As for other treasures, an elderly fisherman discovered a tin can filled with money many years ago on the southern tip of the island. Additionally, relic hunters have unearthed an old sword, cannonballs, iron spikes, ancient bottles, and a musket at the site of the pirate stronghold. During a mosquito control initiative several years ago, Ross Island was intersected with drainage ditches. At one point, a dragline operator snagged a submerged object, nearly causing his equipment to overturn. This occurred at the location of the former lagoon, now overgrown. Upon closer examination, the object was revealed to be a substantial ship's anchor. A couple of cannons were also unearthed. In addition to the silver trove nestled in the hull of the old vessel, mired in the silt at the bottom of Riviera Bay, Ross's buried treasure on his clandestine island bequeaths a bountiful legacy for the intrepid adventurer.
Among the many states famed for tales of buried and long-lost treasure, Florida stands out as one of the best known for treasure hunting. Countless Spanish galleons fell victim to violent storms and hurricanes, sending them to their watery graves. Over time, scattered pieces of 8, gold doubloons and bars of gold and silver were lost and buried, remnants of the Spaniards' quest for fortune in the New World. One day, my wife Janet decided she wanted to take a short trip to escape from our home in Bowling Green, Kentucky, and experience something new. I suggested we head to Florida with our gear and try our luck at treasure hunting. She agreed, and by the next morning we were packed and on the road. That evening we reached Florida, checked into a motel, and prepared for an early start the following day. Our equipment included 2 shovels, a metal detector, and the Omnitron NOAA device, a molecular frequency machine programmed to detect specific metals such as gold, silver, brass, iron, copper, lead, or platinum. The device allows you to focus on one type of metal at a time, while filtering out all others hidden in the earth. The Omnitron NOAA works by sending out an omnidirectional electronic signal into the ground, tuned to a specific metal frequency. The desired frequency must first be set using a frequency counter. 2 receiver rods connected to an electronic module then detect the buried target by tracing the signal to its source. These rods are also used to pinpoint the object's exact location. With this setup, it usually takes only 2 to 3 minutes to scan an area of about a quarter mile. After a hearty breakfast, Janet and I set out for one of the small islands off Florida's west coast. Once we set up the equipment on a beach, we began our search. Nothing turned up in or near the sand, but the rods soon picked up a signal pointing out toward the ocean. Since the frequency was set to gold, I switched it to brass, thinking there might be cannons lying on the ocean floor. No luck. I tried again for iron and silver, but still no response. Most likely, the signal had been triggered by something small, like a lost gold ring, a watch, or perhaps even a coin. Of course, finding such an item in the ocean is like looking for a needle in a haystack. A genuine shipwreck site rich with treasure would usually reveal multiple signals. Gold and silver, yes, but also plenty of iron, brass, and lead scattered across the seabed. We decided to pack up our gear and try a different spot on the island. Driving a few miles farther down the beach, we set up again. This time, I handed the equipment over to Janet. She was eager to get more practice with the Omnitron Noah, so I let her take the first turn. I adjusted the frequency to silver. Within the first minute, Janet called out, "I think I've got a good signal." I encouraged her, "Then follow it out and see where it leads." The signal stretched quite a distance, so we began placing markers along the path to keep track. We trailed the signal for nearly half a mile before reaching a particular area where Janet started picking up additional readings. Still, we chose to focus on the first strong signal she had locked onto. To verify the location, we ran the receiver rods across the spot from several different directions. Each time, the rods crossed, confirming that something was buried there. Using the rods further, I was able to estimate the depth. The target appeared to be buried about 3 feet below the surface. One of the advantages of the Omnitron Noah is its ability to give not only the location, but also the depth of buried objects. At this point, I decided to rely on another piece of equipment for confirmation. While the Omnitron Noah could pinpoint both location and depth, it could not reveal the size of the target. Still, I was confident we had located a silver object. To be certain, I swept my metal detector over the spot we had marked with the receiver rods. The signal came through loud and strong, clear evidence that the buried item was of significant size. It was time to dig. Janet glanced at me, and from that look alone, I knew exactly who was going to do the digging. Taking up my shovel, I began moving sand away, working steadily for about 25 minutes. Then, my shovel struck something solid. Dropping the tool, I used my hands to clear the remaining sand, and there it was, a silver bar. I lifted it from the ground, and it felt heavy, close to 50 pounds. On the underside were carved 3 crosses and 3 horizontal lines, markings that immediately caught our attention. Janet was overjoyed. This was her very first find, and what a discovery it was. A 33-pound Spanish silver bar. For now, the exact location will remain undisclosed, as there are still other promising signals to investigate. But one thing is certain, our very first treasure hunting trip to Florida together had been more than worthwhile. Though the silver bar was an incredible discovery, we both knew it was only the beginning. Florida's coasts have swallowed countless ships, each carrying its own share of treasure and untold stories. As we packed up our equipment and watched the sun sink into the Gulf, Janet smiled and said, "Just imagine what still lies out there, waiting to be found." With that thought, we left the island not just with silver in our hands, but with the thrill of mystery in our hearts, already eager for the next hunt and the secrets the sea might yet reveal. Florida has always been a land of secrets. Dense forests, storm-tossed coasts, and forgotten pirate coves. Over the centuries, outlaws, pirates, and treasure seekers left behind not only their legends, but also whispers of hidden fortunes that may still lie buried beneath the soil and sand. We'll explore some of Florida's most mysterious treasure tales, from Depression-era gangsters to forgotten outlaw bands, to storm-tossed Spanish shipwrecks, and even the bloody legacy of a pirate admiral who became a legend. In January 1934, federal agents surrounded a small lakeside cottage near Lake Weir in north-central Florida. Inside were Ma Barker and her son Freddie, the last holdouts of the infamous Barker-Karpis gang. The standoff erupted into a blistering gun battle that lasted hours. When the smoke finally cleared, Ma and Freddie lay dead. But the real mystery began after the shooting stopped. Inside the cottage, agents discovered $10,000 in cash, loot from robberies and kidnappings. Yet many believe this was only a fraction of the gang's fortune. The Barker-Karpis gang had pulled in an estimated $3 million from their bloody career. According to Alvin Karpis, the gang's most notorious member, it was common practice to bury money after a crime, keeping it hidden until it could be safely laundered overseas. One famous incident proved how risky that system could be. After the 1934 kidnapping of Edward Bremer in St. Paul, Minnesota, the gang buried $200,000 in a leather sack behind a Cleveland garage. Water seeped into the bag, and when they dug it up, the bills looked like they'd been pulled out of a lake. The gang tried drying the cash with electric fans and smuggled it to Venezuela for laundering. But Karpis later stumbled across some of those same stained bills in Cuba, proof that their carefully hidden money was slipping into circulation, a dangerous mistake that drew federal agents ever closer. Karpis rushed back to Florida to warn the Barkers. Just days later, the FBI struck. The Barkers were dead. Karpis was eventually captured and imprisoned, and Doc Barker would later die in a failed jailbreak. Yet rumors persist that much of their fortune was never recovered. Locals still whisper that caches of outlaw loot remain buried somewhere in the swamps and woods near Lake Weir. Long before Ma Barker, another outlaw haunted Florida's backcountry. In 1784, Spanish officials reported that 60 outlaw families were hiding in the dense forests between the St. Johns and St. Mary's rivers. Their leader was a man named Dan McGirth, fabulously wealthy, strutting in fine shirts, silver buttons, and a fat purse of gold coins. But McGirth had a weakness: women. Spanish soldiers captured him one night in the bed of a young Indian woman, and his fate was sealed. Locked away in the dank, windowless cells of the Castillo de San Marcos in St. Augustine, Florida, McGirth quickly lost his sanity. With their leader gone, the outlaw families scattered. Yet the Spanish could never track down the treasures they left behind. Each family had lived independently, caching whatever loot they couldn't carry. Somewhere in those forests may still lie the fortunes of McGirth and his followers, an outlaw treasure trove waiting for discovery. Florida's mysteries don't stop on land. Along the Atlantic coast, storms still revealed the ghosts of Spanish treasure fleets. Underwater hunting within 3 miles of shore is restricted, but after northeast storms, locals know to comb the beaches. Coins from Spanish galleons, pillar dollars, silver cobs, even gold doubloons have turned up after violent seas churn the sands. 7 different wrecks have been identified near Sebastian Inlet alone. Beachcombers and detectorists continue to find scattered coins, proof of a long history of shipwrecks and storms. But treasure hunters beware. Much of this coast falls within protected state parks. Laws shift, and the rules on metal detecting can be complex. For those who know where and when to search, however, Florida's coin beaches remain legendary. Perhaps no tale looms larger in Florida's treasure lore than that of José Gaspar, better known as Gasparilla. Once a rising star in the Spanish Navy, Gaspar fell victim to court intrigue and fled to the Gulf Coast. There he became a pirate lord, raiding for over 30 years. Blackbeard lasted only 2 years as a pirate. Gaspar terrorized the Gulf for decades. He and his crew looted hundreds of ships, amassed fortunes in stolen cargo, slaves, and ransom money, and even built their own bases on the barrier islands near modern-day Fort Myers. Gasparilla Island became his personal fortress and home. Captiva Island held female captives awaiting ransom, while Boca Grande was fortified as a pirate stronghold. But in 1821, Gaspar's reign ended. A ship he believed to be a merchant vessel revealed itself as the U.S. Navy's Enterprise. Caught in the ambush, Gaspar wrapped himself in anchor chains and leapt into the sea. His crew was captured and hanged. Though Gaspar was gone, the legends grew. Treasure stories spread before his body even sank. To this day, searchers scour the islands around Fort Myers, hunting for his hidden wealth. A few scattered coins have surfaced, but the vast fortune of José Gaspar remains one of Florida's greatest mysteries. From outlaw gangs to pirate admirals, from lost caches to storm-tossed gold, Florida's landscape is layered with treasure tales. Some may be myths, others may still lie buried beneath the swamps, sands, and seas. One thing is certain: Florida remains a land of hidden fortunes, and the hunt is far from over. Ever since I bought my first metal detector, I've dreamed of discovering a site rich in Civil War relics. The war left behind countless opportunities for artifact hunters, if you can find spots that aren't protected as government parks or completely picked clean. As many Civil War enthusiasts know, North Georgia and Southeast Tennessee are prime areas for relic hunting. But to my surprise, I also uncovered a promising site in Florida, a little-known location near Cedar Key on the Gulf Coast, where a skirmish known as the Station 4 battle took place. Of course, this battle doesn't compare in scale to Chickamauga or Chattanooga, But when I visited with my detector, I recovered some fascinating artifacts. That's when I realized treasure hunting isn't always about gold and silver. It can also mean unearthing a piece of history, whether it's an old button, a glass bottle, or any relic that connects you to the past. I hadn't imagined the Civil War reaching so far south into Florida, but it did. Several battles were fought there, something I only learned while researching material for a book I was writing. Treasure hunting, I've come to understand, is only half fieldwork. The other half, just as essential, is spent in libraries and museums, poring over records, photographs, and woodcuts that point to forgotten locations. Without that research, many of the best sites would remain hidden from view. It was during a visit to the library that I first came across information about Station 4. That was the moment I realized this could be a promising site for Civil War relic hunting. My research revealed that the Station 4 battle lasted nearly an entire day, involving heavy gunfire and close to 1,000 troops. Digging deeper into the Civil War records of 1865, I found journals in the archives of the Florida Library and the Florida State Historical Commission in Tallahassee. Here's what I uncovered. On February 13, 1865, Federal Admiral Stribling reported to the Navy Department in Washington that the U.S. schooner Matthew Vassar had captured the English schooner John Hale. He also described how the tenders Fox and Stonewall, serving the Stars and Stripes, destroyed a Confederate salt works. Around the same time, Captain Dickinson received a dispatch from Captain E.J. Sutterlow, who reported that Federal forces had landed a substantial number of troops at Cedar Key under the protection of gunboats. From there, Union soldiers advanced inland. Some had reached Levyville just northwest of Cedar Key, while another part of the command was moving toward nearby Lake City. Confederate headquarters in Tallahassee ordered Captain Dickinson to advance against the Federals who had moved inland from Cedar Key. He was instructed to strike their rear if possible and harass them until General Miller could arrive with reinforcements from Lake City, with 52 men from Company H under Lieutenants McCardle and McGaddy, along with 20 men from Company H of the 5th Battalion Cavalry under Lieutenants Haley and Haynes, and supported by a single 12-pound howitzer. Dickinson quickly saw that cutting off the Federals entirely would be impossible. Near sundown, his force reached Station Number 4, located about 4 miles behind the Federal lines. At daybreak the next morning, reinforcements joined him. Captain Sutterlow with 18 men from an outpost, and 37 militia under Captains King, Dudley, Price, and Watterson. Altogether, Dickinson commanded about 160 men with some artillery. Soon after, a courier reported that General Miller was still nearly 50 miles away on the road from Lake City. Convinced that the Federals would eventually retreat toward Cedar Key under the protection of their gunboats, Dickinson chose to strike immediately. Confederate estimates placed the Federal force at 600 to 700 men, 2 regiments of both white and black troops, well positioned behind the raised embankment of the railroad. Dickinson deployed a picket line on his right, then advanced with 142 men until they came under fire from Federal pickets. His men dismounted, exchanged volleys, and then pressed forward, driving the Union troops back. Though the Confederates were short on ammunition, supply wagons arrived just before nightfall, allowing the fight to continue sporadically into the evening. I could picture the scene vividly. Early the next morning, Confederate scouts at Station 4 discovered that the Federals had slipped away during the night, retreating back toward the coast at Cedar Key. Their attempt to push inland along the railroad had failed. According to one old newspaper account, the slaves, horses, and several hundred head of cattle, with other valuable property, were captured and returned to their owners. The same paper reported, the enemy's loss was 70 killed and taken prisoner. We had 6 severely wounded. 3 of these gallant young soldiers, Joseph C. Crees, Edwin Lengle, and John M. Johns, never fully recovered from their wounds. Reading those yellowed pages from 1865, it felt as though the shots had been fired not over a century ago, but only yesterday. The Station 4 battlefield proved to be a rich ground for relic hunters. One man unearthed a badly deteriorated yet beautiful sword with a homemade detector, while another discovered a pistol barrel and musket near the old railroad bed. Black glass bottles, uniform buttons, mini balls, and even coins predating the Civil War have been recovered from the site. I myself found many artifacts at the Cedar Key location. Several of my discoveries from Station 4 now fill display cases in the Historical Museum of St. Petersburg, where they remain on view to this day. After the war, Cedar Key quickly grew into one of the nation's largest exporters of cedar products. But prosperity was short-lived. The cedar forests were soon depleted, and the boom ended. Today, more than a century later, Cedar Key is once again drawing people's attention, no longer for its timber or its battles, but for the way it has preserved its heritage. Visitors now come seeking quiet weekends, drawn by the sense of history that still lingers in the air. If you ever decide to try your luck at Station 4 or at any other Civil War battlefield, remember that relic hunting requires patience. When using a metal detector, keep in mind that mini balls, buttons, and similar artifacts are rarely concentrated in one spot. Instead, they're usually scattered across the ground, which means you'll need to work slowly and cover every inch of the area with care. At the Station 4 site, nearly all of my finds were spread out, with no two lying close together. On another occasion, however, I happened across what had once been a target practice area, where bullets had been fired in such great numbers that I recovered hundreds of spent rounds left in piles by the troops. Generally, at most Civil War battle sites, relics are found just a few inches beneath the surface, often only 2 or 3 inches deep, and rarely more than a foot. That shallow depth makes the search rewarding, but also requires thorough, methodical sweeping to avoid missing pieces of history that still lie waiting to be uncovered.
Ah, the allure of riches. Like a shimmering jewel, the quest for treasure beckons to the hearts of intrepid explorers. And so it was on that fateful summer's day when my beloved husband Michael and I embarked on a metal-detecting adventure. Our destination? A picturesque beach nestled along the enchanting southwest Florida coast. Bound together as partners in this grand pursuit, our roles were clear. I aided Michael in unearthing the hidden treasures unveiled by our trusty metal detector. Swiftly, we worked as a well-oiled machine, ensuring no precious item escaped our grasp. But let it not be said that we were negligent in our duty. Once an object was retrieved, I meticulously combed through the area, determined to uncover any additional treasures lying in wait. Yet not all that glitters is gold. Discarded remnants, cast aside by careless souls, found solace in our junk bag, destined for a more appropriate resting place. In this way, we not only preserved the pristine beauty of the beach, but also saved ourselves from the repetitive chore of unearthing the same trinkets time and again. With our trusty metal detecting tools in hand, the sand scoop, the trowel, and our precious goodie bag, we embarked on our grand adventure along the sandy shores. Michael, armed with the mighty Garrett beach hunter, commenced his search for hidden treasures. As I strolled leisurely towards the beach, my eyes caught sight of Michael, hunched over, diligently digging into the sand. Anticipating the usual pull-tab discovery, I was utterly astounded when, with a single glance, a glimmer of gold dazzled my vision. A gold ring, oh, what a wondrous sight. In a burst of astonishment, I let out a triumphant cry. It was beyond belief the bounty we had stumbled upon. Hastily, I retrieved my canteen of water and delicately rinsed away the sand, revealing the ring's resplendent sparkle under the radiant sunlight. Little did we know then that this magnificent find was no ordinary trinket. It was an 18K gold ring adorned with a captivating peridot gemstone. The excitement coursed through our veins as we pressed on with unwavering determination, meticulously combing every inch of the sandy shore in search of another extraordinary discovery. Curious onlookers approached us, their eyes wide with intrigue, eager to learn about our findings. Alas, despite our relentless efforts, the elusive gold treasure eluded us for the remainder of the day. A handful of clad coins graced our collection, but it was the gleam of a single golden ring that adorned our goodie bag. While tales of treasure hunters unearthing countless trinkets danced in our imaginations, we reveled in the triumph of this solitary gem. our spirits remained undeterred, eagerly anticipating the next adventure, for beneath the sand lay countless possibilities, waiting patiently to be revealed by the enchanting call of our metal detector. Though not a diamond ring this time, perhaps destiny has a sparkling surprise in store for us someday.
Thanks for watching. If you'd like to read the original article or purchase the magazine from which it was taken, please check out our website, truetalesofburiedtreasure.com.